Well, good morning. It is Sunday. It's raining. It's grey. It's making me a bit miserable, I have to say today. And this is as well, because this is the drawing I did yesterday. And I thought I'd add colour using some distress inks. I've just got a piece of plastic here. It's actually a cutting plate from some kind of die cutting machine, not a brand I own, but it was clear. I saw it in a craft shop and I thought that will do for putting inks and pens and things on so I can see them. And it was a few pounds to buy. And yeah, I've also made ones from white cards, laminated, or old bits of packaging. It doesn't matter, on a piece of white paper so you can see the colour. You can use anything to do this with. These have been here since yesterday, and I thought I'll use some distress inks to colour this. Try and keep within the colours I've used. So I know I've used broken china, peacock feathers, and I've added blueprint sketch and sapphire blue for the blues. Pinks and purples, I've used dusty concord and seedless preserves. And the greeny cut shades are, what is that one? Cracked pistachio, evergreen bough and pine needles. And I've mixed them, and I had some crushed olive as well, but I've used all of that up. That's what makes the greeny yellow colours. But I've mixed the colours up to make different tones and things. And I realised that I wasn't really happy with this. So I started with these ones here and did these and then these and these vaguely. And when I did these little shapes here, I thought, they're lovely. And these ones just didn't look right to me. And then these greens didn't look right. They look too vibrant. I didn't want anything so vibrant in all of this. And these pinks and purples look a bit mucky to my eyes here. And I quite like these green bits here. They've worked out nicely. I like those. This is interesting. And I'm just thinking it's another example of, Angela, what were you thinking going on? But I'm going to finish the colouring, and then I've got a plan in my head where I'm going to dig out some of my fine liner pens, like Staedtlers or the Chameleons, the Staedtler Triplus, and try and choose colours that are slightly darker in shade or that would work with this in a nice kind of, in a nice way to add some, I suppose, Zentangle style patterns into some of these areas of colour to add interest and break them up, because it's just flat. It's not me. So, with no further aplomb and big size, I shall get along with this, I suppose. Nightmare. I sometimes stop and think, why do you do this to yourself, Angela? And the answer is, I think I embody the definition of insanity, trying to do, doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different outcome. And it amazes me in myself, and I sort of think, how is it I can get colour and effects that I really love digitally, and yet when it comes to using traditional media, everything I seem to want to try and do with it just ends up creating something where I just go, for God's sakes. I guess digital art is my superpower, and I'm just going to have to learn to live and cope with that. Right, these distress inks, they're always water reactive, and so you can use them a bit like watercolours. This paper is not watercolour paper. It's a heavyweight smooth cartridge paper. It will take some water, but it won't take repeated washes and huge amounts of water. But you can see as the paper's damp, I can still tap colour in, and I don't know if you can see, but it will darken the tone just that bit. So that makes me a little bit happier. And of course I could choose to drop in other colours, which I may very well do with this blue here to get a darker colour on the edge. So let's have a look. Let's pick up a bit of this chipped sapphire, and while it's still damp, not damp enough it seems, that one is, because the colour will spread into the other slowly. This one just needs that extra bit of help from an extra bit of water. And I might get like a water stain with them, but at this point in time I just want to finish the colouring and get it done with, and then see what I can do with some pencils and, oh, not pencils, am I talking about pens? Although pencils could be useful, because coloured pencils, because I could add an intensity of colour here to different parts that I can't get with the distress inks. So that could be a useful plan perhaps, but then I'd have the added problem of drawing over the top of them. So I'm thinking on this, and it's Sunday, and I am vertical, my eyes are open, but I'm not really fully functional yet today. I'm to breakfast, I don't know what I want. I feel hungry, but I just don't want to eat. So, yeah, it's one of those days where really I think it's a day where I really should just go, right, it's duvet day, I'm staying in bed. I'm hoping the weather will improve. I say this every day lately. And yesterday the weather did improve, but I fell asleep and I missed it again. So today, well, I need to be ready to dash out, and I think I'm going to have to dash out anyway, because I'm nearly out of milk, and that won't necessitate a trip to a supermarket necessarily, because there is a petrol station, a gas garage that has a tiny shop where they sell milk and other stuff, and it will stop me with the temptation of buying snacks like poppadoms and Thai crackers and things like that. They just happen to be there in front of me. If I don't have them, I don't eat them. And if I'm shopping online, it's easier to resist the temptation of seeing them as you walk past them in the supermarket aisle. But me being me, of course. Yeah. So, but I'm not desperate. It doesn't mean I'm going to run out of milk today. It just means I'll need it. But if there's once I've showered and dressed, finish this and whatever else I'm going to do. So, get my mouth and my brain into gear would be a good thing for me to do, it has to be said. I'm going to take my opportunities as they present themselves, so, but showering would be, at the moment, would just be perhaps just a bit too physically demanding, from the point of view of coordination and actually remembering which part of me I've washed and what needs to be done, and why have you put conditioner on your hair before you've shampooed it, for example. It's one of those days, and I just recognise it in myself. Why? I don't know. It could be the weather, it could be sleep, either too much or too little. I suspect not enough overnight. I was up until late on Zoom. I had a lovely chat with Brett, who runs the Angela Porter's Facebook group, but whether it was because it was Saturday night or whatever, the option for the group to come and join us, or members of the Facebook group to come and join us, didn't materialise, which was fine. People are busy. You know, I'll always give opportunities, you know, for people to do this until I can be absolutely sure that nobody does want to. Because, you know, people are people, and they've got things to do and lives to get on with as well. And but I might do some more structured things, like come and, you know, a template to share and colour and join in with me in that experience, I suppose, and see if I can teach anybody anything about colouring. Yeah, right. So I'm like, yeah, I'm really going to do that, because you know, yeah, I'm doing such a good job of it myself. Not, but I'm going to persevere and see if I can make something better out of this, or, you know, something positive from my experiences here, and just think about things going forward. The one thing I didn't do with this was scan it in before I added colour, but if I want to, I can always scan it in and redraw the black lines. It won't take long. It took me less than an hour to draw this, so it's not going to be a huge thing if that's what I wanted to do. I don't know. I do despair at myself. I ought to put a big sticky note on my computer screen or on my work mat here saying, don't do traditional colours, just chuck them all out, get rid of the whole lot of them, just work you know, paper, pens, keep, everything coloured, go. And then I'll start restocking stuff again as I realise, oh, I got rid of that and I could really use that now. Yeah, that happens as well. It seemed a good idea at the time to declutter or de-stash in some way. Trials and tribulations of being me. We'll see. So yeah, so my mood isn't exactly the most wonderful today. I'm not down or, you know, totally miserable. I'm just flat feeling, you know. I describe it as a bit meh, you know. I just don't feel with it in any way, shape or form. I am feeling tired, uncoordinated perhaps, and just sort of fed up, but not fed up in, you know, not fed up in a way I don't want to do things. Just I'm frustrated with this. I really am frustrated with this because I know I can do better, and I have done, and I don't know what's gone wrong or why it's gone wrong. It could just be a lack of practice and use of this skill over time, you know, and you know, painting and colouring and whatever, using different media, it is a skill, and it takes you know, time and effort to develop the skills that you want, and not just to develop but practice to keep them fresh. And that's perhaps why I struggle with watercolour, because I don't watercolour every day. But it's, oh yeah, I know, let's do that, something that's really dark. It's that really could be the problem, and the issue is that I just don't use these materials often enough and regularly enough to develop the skills to get the results I'd like. But at the same time, I'm also doing my best to develop the skills digitally. It may be that I just spread myself a bit too thin with things. I don't know. I really don't know. I do need to freshen things up in what I do and materials I use from time to time. And I've talked about this, about how I work with one kind of pen for quite a while and then it just doesn't feel right in my hands anymore and I need to change it. I need a different feel, a different experience, because it is I call it a sensual experience, meaning that it's my senses are involved in the experience of drawing. In fact, your senses are involved in everything, and things just need to be, I suppose, right in some way. So, I'll do things like that, but when it comes to various media for adding colour, it's a whole different kind of ball game for me, it seems. I think I have to perhaps hone down on what I do use and keep it as simple as I can. And that may be the focus of my de-stashing, decluttering, de-whatevering, is being tough with myself and saying, right, I'm keeping all my drawing pens and some pencils, drawing pencils, and my Colorinos, because they're fab. And just being brutal and saying, right, being honest is that as much as I love traditional media and messing with them from time to time, I really get frustrated and my skills are limited here, and let's bite this bullet and let's do something about it. Just get rid of it all and limit what I use things like distress inks for, because I do like distress inks. I really do. They're great for making backgrounds. And I've said, for a while I've realised I need to make up my own bank of digital backgrounds that I've created perhaps with them. Possibly. I don't know. And take it from there, but I don't know. I start doing this and I get sidetracked with other things. And again, that's me, it's sort of like, it's that variety that I need. Things that perhaps challenge me in a different direction. This is challenging me in a way I really don't want to be challenged, I suppose. I think I could quite happily say that. I really could, actually. This really is challenging me. But it's a frustration, not a positive kind of challenge. And I've got no idea why I've switched to just blue here, but I think it's just because I'm just wanting to get this coloured, get it over and done with, go on to the next step and see whether I can rescue this or whether I have to say, right, enough's enough. So yeah. It just goes to show we all get frustration with what we do, and some experiments work, and if I look at it as an experiment in art, then perhaps it's easier for me to understand, except with science, experiments generally work out, and even if the results are unexpected, there's something new to learn. Now, there is something new to learn here, let's be honest. It's don't do this, Angela. I might have been better off sticking with monochrome. Instead, perhaps picked way too many colours and ones that sort of like stand out against the others too much. Whereas if I'd stuck to just a small number of shades of blue, perhaps, and focused on getting those shadows and highlights in, then perhaps it all would have worked out in a nicer way or in a way that I would prefer. I don't know, because I can't go back and change the clock. I think that's where I started. I got frustrated with this quite early on with these here. I put these purple spines in and it just didn't work. It just didn't feel right and sit right with me in any way, shape or form. So I don't know what. There we go. We'll use that one. Some there. So the whole result, you know, it may have been that I was just fed up when I was doing this with that particular section and just went, oh well, let's just carry on. It just, oh well, it's got worse, let's just carry on and see if, you know, or perhaps when I've done more it'll look a lot better, because I do get a bit like that, and I never learn. But sometimes things just don't get any better. It's just one's kind of catastrophe after another, and on we go with it. And my next decision is, I've also had a thought while I was talking, is do I use fine liners, or should I dig out some metallic watercolours and make use of those to add the lines and patterns, because that can be quite subtle but quite nice. Problem is that I could end up having to go over all the black lines again, because my brush skills are fine-ish, but I haven't practiced really fine line drawing with a fairly damp brush for a long time. There's a lot of dark green. I think this is just showing my mood today, to be honest with you. This is going to be, that's going to be completely wrong. Let's go with this. So I have choices, but then it's sort of like, am I just spending time trying to make a bad job better, instead of just accepting it for what it is, making notes on it, plonking it in a sketchbook with a reminder yet again, Angela, don't do this. Yeah, I don't know, is the honest answer, what the best thing is to do. Comments below. If nothing else, it shows that we all get these problems and issues. And it may just be that my mood has influenced how I see things, because it does. On a good day, you know, I can be really quite resilient to such things, and on a bad day, the world is coming to an end, you know, with the slightest problem or issue. So today, the world isn't coming to an end, but I certainly need to put big notes up to myself. Perhaps that's what I'll do. I'll make a note on some paper in a moment, as I finish this. It says, Angela, make yourself something to hang up that says, stop with the traditional media. You know, it is what it is now, and I don't know if I'm going to improve this at all. I'm not really thinking about the colours I'm putting together anymore, trying to think about them, because I'm beyond that point. It's just trying to get everything with colour in and taking it all from that point and seeing what I can do. about it, and I actually don't have many hopes for it, to be honest. I think this is might be beyond redemption. It may very well be. Well, at least one thing, I can persevere at times, and I can be quite stubborn about stuff that I do. It has to be said, I can be really quite stubborn. I'll see it through to the bitter end. The bitter end, if I remember rightly, is a term that comes from sailing, seafaring. I think the bitter end is the very last bit of the rope that holds the anchor. So the furthest away from the anchor. I don't know why it's called bitter end. I've forgotten. I did know it one time. But yeah. So I guess the phrase seeing it through to the bitter end meant something. I don't know if it had something to do with people being disciplined on board ships, or as they used to, or whether it's something else. I really now have no idea whatsoever. So, and I'm not likely to remember. I could Google it, but everybody could. Well, what does the phrase the bitter end mean, and where does it come from? I do have Google skills, research skills, because I had to learn how to hone down my research when I was in terms for research and finding books and articles. When I was in university, we didn't have the access really to, there wasn't a computer system. And so it was card records, and you couldn't spend years going through the card records in the hope you'd hit on something. You really did have to learn to hone things down and look through, what do you call them, indexes and catalogues and search words and so on. And it's still just as applicable now, because it's how you ask Google or any other search engine a question. And it will get you the answers you require. And sometimes surprising articles as well. There was a time, and there most probably still is occasionally, where I could lose myself in the internet like that, where perhaps start off asking about one thing, and the article you follow through with, there was something interesting on a similar but slightly different topic, and before I knew it, I'd be looking at articles and finding out information about subjects I'd never really considered, and it used to be really quite interesting, sometimes quite surprising and shocking, and the trails it led. And it's something I don't do now. I think it's perhaps because I don't know. I just don't. Perhaps it's because I've got so many other demands on my time, perhaps, or my interests, that it's quite nice to. I make use of things in like the internet now, in a very specified way, instead of just, I wonder what I can find out if I type this in, or where will this take me? It's a bit like a treasure hunt, an intellectual or curiosity-based treasure hunt, rather than a treasure hunt where somebody's laid clues out and things. It's sort of like, where will the internet take me next? And don't click on that link, because you know it's going to take you somewhere dark and most probably not recommended for safety and security of one's computer system. Of course, now I've got a virus, as we all do, virus protector that warns me of dodgy websites. Are you sure you really want to go there? And the answer often is, nope, not if you tell me. Or actually yes, because I know this is a kosher website because I typed the website address in. So why are you telling me that I ought to reconsider going there? Yeah. So that does happen. And I've noticed, I don't know how long it's been doing it, but my text messaging on the phone intercepts text messages that are spam or dangerous links. I was looking, I was thinking, why are there things from Royal Mail in there? Because I know I'm expecting goods via Royal Mail. And to click on it, it says this is, this is spam, but it's been identified as dodgy. And you look at the web address and you think, oh, that sounds okay. And then you realise, no, it's not, because royalmail.co.uk something else or dash something else isn't a valid web address. And I'm thinking, okay, thank you once again. Somebody somewhere is saving me from all of this. And I'm going to see if I can save myself from all of this now. So I think I've decided I'm not going to chance paints, metallic paints on this, although I do have some lovely ones. What I am going to do is dispose of that, which is a very painty, inky piece of kitchen towel that I was using to dry my brush off and take the excess ink off. This on the screen doesn't look as bad as it does perhaps to me, but I may have my meh glasses on today that everything's going to look wrong and taste wrong and be wrong. I don't know. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go and find some fine liners that I think colours will work with this, and a white pen would be quite nice for highlights and so on. And I'm going to see what I can do about this and see if I can improve it. So I'll be back in a mo. So I'm back. For you, no time has gone, but for me a couple of minutes went because I knew where I was going to go and look. And I've dug out a selection of pens. I've got some Staedtler Triplus fine liners, and I've chosen them in sort of these dusky, muted, vintagey colours because distress inks are sort of that distressy, vintagey, grungy kind of colours. Could be quite clear and bright, some of them, but not all of them. I've also chosen a couple of these Sarasa gel pens, vintage colour gel pens from Zebra, and I'll see how they get on. Some of those over here. A fine Unipol Signo DX, it's waterproof. A white Signo. And then some Posca pens, which are white. I don't have any other colours of Poscas there. And I'm going to see how we get on. I'm just going to move this in that little bit. That should be fine, I think. Should be fine. Sorry, you got my finger there. I don't think I've got the willpower or the brain power today to edit that bit out, but it's okay. So I'm going to see what happens with these. I don't know is the honest answer, but I think I'm going to start with, it's hard to know which are the best to start with, because this one, although it's got a thicker tip on it, the point is actually smaller than the smaller ones. So let's have a look here, because yep, it's dry. So this is the pain with these, is that you have to get them to work in this way. But let's see if I can add some patterns that will break these up and add some interest. White is always fun to do because it gives those highlights, and then I can decide if I want to go in with one of the darker colours, of course. Again, I'll just mention that people will get fed up of hearing me say this, but I don't want to mislead anybody. I'm not given these by any company or asked to promote them in any kind of way or paid to do this. These are just materials I find useful for myself. that I like to use. And any opinions are my own. I'm not recommending that you rush out and get them. In fact, I'd say don't go out and rush and get things just because I use them. Though these, the Poscas are great because they are very opaque. The Signo's pretty good, but I find with the gel pens that they can pick up the colour from the background paper. And the background ink, in a way that these Poscas don't seem to, which is great. Just finding my way of getting a rhythm here. It doesn't matter if these are different on each one. It's me trying to work out the best way to add these patterns and your lines, textures. Brain not working. But I think, I don't know if you can see, I'm hoping you can see that it is making a difference. Those areas were really devoid of pattern. Again, this is a technique you can use if you are into colouring books, because these pens are great for adding highlights, but if you add texture and pattern, texture through pattern, it can really help to bring work to life. It adds more interest. And while I'm not adding any Zentangle patterns here, I'm just adding lines and dots, essentially, just to add some highlights here. They remind me of more of sea urchins now than it does of flowers, which is fine. I can live with that. I don't have a problem or an issue with that at all. Because again, it is what it is, and I'm having to do something here because I'm try things out to make me more satisfied with what I've created or destroyed in some ways with the colour. Because I was quite okay with the line art, but adding colour was really, I keep saying this, the frustration. So I'm taking it now as an opportunity to try different things out and see what I can do. And I may not finish this picture. I may just, it may just be that I'm doing some of this now just to see what I could do and to learn. And I do this in my digital art, where I'll fill areas in colour and then sometimes go back in with highlight and shadows to bring pattern texture, or to add pattern and texture into the colour of that section. And I quite like being able to do that. It's I guess the best way is to say it's intriguing. I've gone over the black line there, not a problem, because that's what black pens are for, and once this is dried I can draw over the top of it. The thing is, I think these Posca pens, once they dry, I think they're waterproof, and I could have done this before adding the distress inks, and they don't sit over the top of that. I didn't think of that, but it works the same way whichever way you do it, really, other than if I was to do this on the white paper before adding the distress ink, got distress background, then the ink wouldn't pick some of this colour up, because it is picking the colour up just a bit. but that I'm okay with for now, because it makes it all that little bit more subtle. So see, hopefully you can see. Let me turn that, and let's have a look about, zoom in a bit, and perhaps you can, yeah, there we go, we can see better there. And put some light back on because it is darker out, and it just adds, just lifts it just that bit. So for these, I think I'm likely to want to put some spots and dots in, and I will put little dots for highlights on these little berries in there. I tried to do it with the water, but my skills with my brush are sadly out of practice. That wasn't the word I was looking for. I don't know what I was looking for. Atrophied, I think, was a word. But that works. And then actually white dots in there really do. Actually, I like that. Small and bigger ones and different sizes. And even where the colour's paler, the white will stand out in a slightly different way. So it's just beginning to add those bits of interest. And perhaps this will save it. I'm not entirely sure about all of it, but we are it is making that difference that I was hoping it would. And adding that interest. I'm waffling, I'm saying the same things over. It's a function of my brain function today. It's either going to be a serious amount of caffeine needed or a serious amount of extra sleep at some point. Or just do something different. I do know I want to practice with the tongue drum, the hand drum that I've got. Well, it is a tongue drum. Which gives beautiful bell-like tones when hit properly, and a bit of a strange one if I'm not very good with it. So again, it's hand-eye coordination, motor skills. It's learning to always keep the drum in the same orientation towards me, so that I become familiar with where all the different notes are. And it's practice just like learning any musical instrument, whether it's fingerings on a flute, movement patterns on a harp or piano, or placement of fingers on a cello to get the different notes. It's just remembering where they are and toning, using your ear to help you know that you're in tune. So it's like everything, it's hand-eye coordination for drawing, and it's practice, practice, practice with your chosen media. I think my problem is I haven't really settled on any kind of colouring media. I tend to dip in and out of them, and I think that's why I struggle with them and with colour. I feel I do anyway. You may disagree with me, but I really do feel that I struggle choosing colours and making them work, and I prefer a very limited palette. The palette I chose today, colour palette I chose yesterday, used today, I think is just too wide and varied. Blues and perhaps some bluey purples would have been, and bluey greens. So they are, what do you call them? Analogous colours next to each other on the colour wheel. That works well for me. Sometimes with just a complementary colour which is opposite them. So for blues it would be orangey yellow, orangey red and yellow. tones. So that would have worked, but not being very precise with this because I'm just doing this to see what happens. So that actually, those would be nice. And then what I'm going to do here is, where's that one? I've got this. So it's not too dissimilar in tone, this particular ink. And as it dries back, hopefully it will blend with the background colour. These petals. I'm not going to do them all. I think I'm going to use it just as that kind of test, a test ground for what I'm doing and what's going on here. And you know, this is likely to be too dark, I think, for the purple ones, but we'll see. It is a bit on the darker side, but the actual shade is nice. It's, if it was a bright, clean kind of pure purple colour, it wouldn't work, but this is a dusky purple, so it's got more of those grey or black in it to tone it down. And even though it is darker than, you know, a fair bit darker than the purple in places, it still works. So I'm just putting straight lines here to see which I prefer, really. Doesn't take too long to do. So there's some there. There's little dots of highlights on the leaves, on the petals. If I want to, I can just go over this as well. I'm not sure I like those dots there, but I can add some over the top just to get a bit of shadow with them, which is fine. I can live with that. So there's those. I started doing some of those. These ones I think would be nice with, because there's so much more space. And if I do go over black lines, it doesn't matter too much, because I can always go back with a black pen. So I've got things like that. Yeah, this. Adding white spots makes them look a bit like owl eyes. Because I've zoomed this in. I'm sorry if I'm missing things off the screen. But here, let's have a look. Try that. And then so that's okay. And let me try. I've got this. So let's see how these work on here. Actually, that's quite a nice match. It's much darker, which is what I'd expect anyway. But it does add that kind of nice feel. And then feel contrast. And here I'm adding distinct shadows next to those highlights, and it gives it that sense of three-dimensionality, perhaps, that the white bits are sticking up above the background. And I can do the same here with this. It's just kind of remembering which way I did it so the pattern is consistent. As this is a pattern of light and shadow. I'm not trying to think of light sources or anything. I'm just trying to get a pattern going. Those could work, I suppose. So this is really me trying different things out to see how I could work with this. And I'm using it really as a place to experiment and see what happens. So that's quite nice, but what I will do is I'm going to put some dots up there. I'm not doing that the way I perhaps would ordinarily like, just to try to get some highlights going. That would work, I think. And then the same here is that I can use dots as highlights on some of these. I think what that does is it leads the eye into those shapes. I'll come back to these when they've dried in a moment and see what happens there. Not so sure about those white dots on the eye type pattern there. We made a mess of them, but I guess it's not the end of the world. I do like using dots for highlights because to get the shape of a highlight right can be challenging, but dots give that suggestion. And I think a lot of art perhaps is doing things in a way that your brain gets that suggestion that, oh, that's supposed to be a highlight. Okay, if that's a highlight, that means it's up and it's catching the light somehow. And yes, I can see how that works, and it doesn't necessarily have to be real in any kind of way. And the underneath here, this is supposed to be darker underneath here, and there are lots of ways I'm sure I could create that sense of darkness while still allowing the original colours to poke through. Filling it in with a texture where that pattern is quite dense, where I want the shadow, and less dense and allowing more of the colour to show through elsewhere. Fill those up. And that would kind of work, I suppose. Another way would be to add lines, and I could do the same here just to give it some of that sense. I quite like those because I could use a different shade of green, a lighter shade, and do the same kind of thing here. I really like that green against the, that actually is really quite nice. See how it breaks up those areas and it just adds interest, I think. Move this out again. There we go. And it's starting to make this more interesting, and I'm a bit happier with it in this kind of way. But as I've used this for experimenting and trying things out, I'm highly unlikely to finish it. I'm just going to make notes on it to self about don't do colour when you're in a meh mood. practice lots first before you attempt this. Keep your colour palette simple and consider just getting rid of all your media, all your traditional media, and sticking with, you know, not all my traditional media. I'll keep my paper, my pens, drawing pens and stuff, pencils that I like, and ditch the rest. Just keep odd ones like chameleon markers and stuff, and, you know, a selection of things that could be useful perhaps. There we are. That actually works nicely there. And then I'd use, got this blue, I've got a darker blue there, perhaps I'll use this one here, and perhaps it'd be all over the place naturally, doing a different colour. This is a Zentangle pattern. I think it comes from one of the fragments in the primer book, but it's quite a common pattern anyway. But here I think we'll take a nice darker one, this one. This one is Doodah, if you want to look it up for Zentangle. It's one of my favourite kinds of filling patterns because it's simple to do. Do have to focus on doing it, but it really gives this lovely kind of maze or path through the pattern. Like the lines I'm drawing are like walls, and then the background is sort of like a corridor or a pathway to take, and it's just interesting to me. So yeah, so adding patterns and lines is really bringing this, is making me happier with this. I'm beginning to smile, and I didn't think I'd smile today. So there we are. I've been proven wrong again. But just light and colour. And of course I said about where I've gone over lines. Here's one place. Just go back with a pen. This one will take a little while to dry. Some of these need a bit of tidying up. But it's easy enough to do. And I've got no idea what I'm going to do about these. I don't know if I can pick them off. I might be able to. Actually, yeah, I can scratch them off with my fingernail or a tool, and consider perhaps using a chalk pastel to do that. Over here, I said I was going to come back to these, and I think I'm going to make these boxes cunningly look this, and I need a pen for the other one. Now I could have reversed on the blue where these different things, where the darker lines were, but I chose to make them the same. And then you've now got boxes that float up. I don't know if you can see that well. Zoom in. You can see here where they seem to be lifted above. It's playing with light and shadow. It's what I like to do. So I'm going to leave that here for today, and I'm going to leave that there perhaps for a good long while. If ever, I'm going to write some notes and I'm going to put it in a sketchbook or whatever and hang on to it as a learning experience, because that is sometimes the best outcome of some artwork, is that I persevere and I use it to work out what it is I don't like and how I can fix it. This one there is no fixing, because I really just didn't think about colours and just filled it in. Perhaps I'm being harsh on myself. There's a good chance I am, because it's one of those days where I feel it's going to be difficult unless the sun comes up and I can get out for a walk and everything. But these lines and details are improving things with this, just a bit. So I'll just say thank you for joining me on my morning rambling art, drawing, journey thing, whatever. And if you've enjoyed what you see, give me a like. Any comments or suggestions for future projects you'd like to see, leave a comment. If you'd like to know when I release stuff, subscribe and perhaps hit the notification bell. It's most days I'm going to. I don't know if it's going to be every day, because I nearly didn't do anything today. But it may be that, you know, I have a quiet Sunday. But then as I draw every day, it doesn't make any difference. So, no hassle to record and to talk while I draw. And just thank you for listening to me, if you did. Because I won't be offended if you didn't. If you sped the video up and put music on and just watch it in fast forward on YouTube, that's fine by me. Or you just watch enough to know that, yeah, I get the idea and I'm off, or skip through it. It's fine. I'm happy. Just say thank you and enjoy the rest of your Sunday. And it's Mandala Monday tomorrow, so I'm likely to record some digital drawing rather than this, so see you with that, and hopefully my colour choices and my sense of colour will be much nicer for it, and I'll be more upbeat about it. But take care and have a good day.